Welcome to Archways Threads, a show focusing on the threads of family and recovery support services that help make up the tapestry of life in recovery. Join us as we share stories from peers and participants in the field and practice of peer recovery support and family support and strengthening. And now, your host, Archways CEO, Michelle Lennon.
Hello and welcome back to Archways Threads. We are here today finishing up our conversation with Marina from one of our Family Threads families. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of our discussion. Thank you. Have you spent any time with your coach thinking about preventing a reoccurrence of use? Like you've mentioned, keeping your environment safe, keeping your communication with your partner safe,
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries. A lot of people, so what I've noticed is that when you start doing really well, people's true colors come out.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is, the people who never really had your best interest at heart, they will try their hardest to kind of derail you.
Mm.
They will make the knife and plunge it where they know it.
Like a hero, my husband in recovery saying nobody ever would give you drugs until you're fighting for your life in recovery.
Yeah, exactly.
Then everybody wants to share with you.
That's why it's so important to, even if you're not somebody that feels confident in using your voice, because this is something I've had to learn because I used to kind of fly below the radar. Is that your voice is what matters. Your voice is what is going to keep you in recovery. Because when you set those boundaries in your environment, you're going to get backlash.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to say some really nasty things to you. People are going to try to manipulate you, guilt you, and you still got to stand your ground.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you get sober, the first time ever you're thinking straight, and your emotions are in line, and you're finally, you're finally in alignment. And so doing things that are new to you is going to feel scary and it's going to feel paralyzing. But the more that you strengthen that muscle, the easier it becomes.
Yeah. So you have support for some of it, right?
For some of it, yeah. I make sure that I speak to a therapist weekly. Because even though the past is the past, there are still things, things are new to you and you're trying to use your voice and you're trying to reestablish agency and you're trying to allow yourself to feel there are things that are going to creep up from the past that are going to haunt you still, and your demons are still going to show their ugly face. And, it's all about having a plan to make sure that doesn't derail you.
And have awareness of
it and just be like, all right, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So,
do you recognize danger zones?
I do.
Yeah.
It's especially since I became a mom, I've become, I would say, ultra sensitive to the danger zones, because for me, it doesn't take much to derail me, unfortunately. And I would feel a lot of guilt and shame around that because I'm like, come on, you have everything right now. But, something that a therapist said to me a long time ago is the way you speak to yourself determines whether it's a lapse or a relapse. It's all about how you talk to yourself and the love that you give yourself and the empathy that you give yourself. I didn't really apply until I became a mom, but it's super important.
So we talked how resilient you guys have been because you were experiencing homelessness. You were both struggling with addiction, and you went from there to entering treatment, to working with a family support worker and a recovery coach, to establishing housing, having your baby who's doing fantastic, and and kind of establishing a life for yourself in a place that you love. I mean, hearing you talking about your feelings of caught my New Hampshire and what you've been talking about. What kind of concrete needs did you run into that were impossible to kind of take care of in the beginning, or even now as you kind of continue on your path here?
Well, I think it was the needs, especially when I was pregnant with my son, and the fact that we were living out of our Jeep at the time. my doctor immediately labeled that as a high risk pregnancy. Because it's the dead of winter. We're at a bar. We were encountered at parking rides and bus stations just to use a bathroom and brush our teeth. And, sometimes I would scroll through social media, which I have actually stopped going on social media because comparison is the thief of joy. And it has influenced how I show up in the world. And honestly, now that I have my little family, that's all that really matters. I don't care about showing people that I hardly know anymore what's going on in my life. But I would look and I'll be like, damn, like, I'm trying to bed, they're lounging, especially in their trimester, because getting in the back seat's really hard for me. So there's a little bit of like sadness that went along with that. But through Archways, we were able to reach out to economic services, or I forget their name, but they put us up in a hotel up until we got housing. So that was a huge relief. So, I mean, I think regardless of how little money you have or the conditions that you are living in, there's always ways to get your needs met. It may not be the most effective. It may mean that, you have to trudge out in like a foot of snow in a parking ride to the bathroom just to use it or to wash up. But just because living conditions are tough doesn't mean that you have to abandon yourself.
Well, that's almost definition of resilience, right? It's like whatever comes your way, you kind of bounce back and get up again. But it gets almost hopeless, I think, for some people.
It's exhausting. And I mean, I would be lying if I said I didn't lose hope during that time. But when there's something greater than you, giving up for me is the option.
Yeah. Especially now.
Yeah, no. Like I think cold saved my life, honestly. I know that sounds cliche and cheesy, but I've always wanted a family. I always knew I wanted to be alone. And now that I am, it's like there's no way that I would destroy that.
We often see like early childhood trauma perpetuating cycles of poverty and violence. And like you've kind of made the interruption. And I think in our conversation earlier, I can't remember if it was you or your boyfriend, but one of you had said like, we went further than we ever would have because of the resources that Archways had connected to us.
Yeah. I mean, I've always had this strong desire, even when I was a kid. I remember yelling down the hallway to my adopted mom, being like, I'm going to be a better mom than you were. And it wasn't to hurt her, but it's me kind of saying like, all right, there's something worth sticking around for. And I remember holding my son for the first time, and I'm like, generational curses end with me. You're not going to experience any of what I went through. I promise you that.
So you were adopted? Yeah.
My biological parents were addicts. My adoptive family. My adoptive dad was okay. My adoptive mom was tumultuous.
Yeah. I grew up in a family that my parents had foster care, and I have adopted siblings. I'm closest to my sister, probably, who I have no blood relation to whatsoever. So I'm always like, oh, you too. You're in one of those families.
That's something that, I've had to kind of heal from as well, because, I know that blood isn't always family, but finally having my own kid with my life being related to me, that heals so much, because I knew growing up that I didn't fit into the family that I know that I was way different from them. And I think a combination of not fitting in and feeling like I belonged and not being heard and seeing that contributed to my journey. Because no matter how well I did, it never seemed to be enough. So, before drinking, I fell into anorexia because I was overdoing it. I was trying to be the perfect daughter. And that almost led me to diet 96 pounds. And then when that option got exhausted, I was like,
And you mentioned earlier about getting to know his pain, but it sounds like you also got to deal with a lot of your own.
yeah, I mean, the nice thing about going through recovery with the person you love is that you get to understand each other better.
Yeah.
And when you start opening up about the wounds and the demons, you start to realize that there's a lot of commonalities between us.
Yeah.
And that fosters a lot of compassion, a lot of love, and a lot of empathy for each other.
Yeah. I think something that's special too is like you both are determined to be better.
Yeah.
To get better, to improve, to grow, and that growth mindset is not something that everybody comes to the table with. And like when we think of the assessments and the kind of screenings and stuff that go along with family friends, like, I think about how some of those strengths really show up, and sometimes it's almost like surprising to the people that do those things that, wow, I've got all of this going for me that I didn't even see.
Yeah.
And, like even just the way you talk is like, wow, you can hear the resilience, you can hear like the growth and hope for the future,
I think it's kind of like an oxymoron in a way because, ultimately your recovery is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's got to be the first priority is you.
Yeah.
But I don't think that means that you have to not acknowledge that your partner is a driving force, that your kids are a driving force.
Of course not. Because honestly, I think one of the growth areas for the recovery movement in general is that we have been about consequence-based goal setting.
Yeah.
He had mentioned it. You got to go to this meeting. You have to meet these requirements and all that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the thing that supported your recovery.
Yeah.
For you, it was this pregnancy. It was this value of wanting to be a good mom. It was all of these other values that tied into that. So then you get away from the consequences of checking the boxes to no, I am going to be a person in recovery because I am going to be the most amazing parent that I can be.
Yeah.
And when we tie any goal to like identity like that and it becomes so part of who you are, you have better success.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
I think that's why environment's so important because in a lot of those environments, like when you go to the meetings, there's a lot of gossip and a lot of, talking behind people's back. And to me, that's not recovery.
Yeah, it does depend on the meeting. So there are some that are really good. I know that we've got like a group that meets and they do a book study every week. They're very serious,
That's what I
didn't find.
That's what I like about those kind of meetings. The serious ones, the ones where, they're determined to help people. And I think what put me off to AA and AA was sporadic symptoms because those meetings weren't serious. And like the sober houses were full of drama and going behind people's back. And that just like really frustrated me because it's like you come out of detox and a 30-day program only to land yourself in a sober house where you're pinned up against each other. Like that's just a recipe for relapse.
Yeah. It's interesting because we do see like people often don't realize in early recovery that they're inviting drama into their lives by engaging in some of those behaviors. And usually 2 years out is when people start coming to awareness about that. But I do think when you're with a recovery coach or, with somebody else that is, fighting hard to not only sustain recovery, but address all of these other areas of life that also support recovery, you tend to kind of back out of the drama quicker,
Yeah. And like since getting sober, and even when I was in detox, I've never been the type to kind of feed into that. Because I've been there, it's exhausting. It's not worth my time, my energy. And so like even when we were at Friday Centers, we just basically stayed quiet. We focused on what we needed to do. We're like, all right, so our time is almost up. Okay, that means we have to find the next step. But quitting was never an option. It couldn't be. It wouldn't be. And I think a lot as a parent, like Colton did ask to be brought into this world. And everything is so new to him. And it's his first time living. It's our first time living too. And so, if I can say at the end of each day that I showed up and I did the best that I could, I'm okay with that.
It's a good day.
If it means that my son gets to go to bed with a full belly and a warm place to sleep, I did my best.
Yeah.
You
Well, you're doing amazing. I think about, what we talk about protective factors, parental resilience. I mean, you guys embody that, right? Knowledge of childhood development, like you guys have gone out of your way to learn how to be good parents, right? You've worked with a family support specialist to learn about, childhood development and what to expect. And you're doing all of the right things that, people who haven't had struggles sometimes don't do,
Yeah. I mean, it does take a certain kind of mindset. And I think that, so I don't like to toot my own horn. I don't like being a certain kind of thing. But I think it does take a certain kind of person to be able to come out of detox and to come out of rehab and to accomplish as much as you have. Because not everybody has ours. It's not everybody has a way of thinking.
The funny thing about resilience, though, the skills can be taught.
Which is great. And I think working with a specialist like that, it reestablishes that resilience is still there. I think they give you hope that, shit's hard right now. But it doesn't mean that it's going to break you. It doesn't mean that it's going to prevent you from going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you need, especially when you're so new to recovery, especially when the world is, because when you get sober, the whole world changes.
Yeah.
Reality.
Everything is new.
Everything is new. Everything is so much more intense because you're feeling for once and you're experiencing life without surviving.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's beyond overwhelming. Sure.
Yeah. Well, you know who to call when you get overwhelmed, right? I mean, that's the good thing. It's, I think about the Family Threads program. It's not like we discharge you from the program and say, see you later.
Yeah.
The
fact that you guys check in, you send a text, like, how are you doing? That's awesome. I mean, I may not respond right away because I'm in the throes of
parenting.
And getting ready for school, but I always do my best to respond. And I know that if I need help with anything, that you guys will do your best. Just again, I don't think Tommy would be able to get that situated, but she did. And that's another wave of hope for me because there are going to be barriers that come up, and you always have one or two choices. Keep going forward, give up, and I've never been one to give up. So I was like, all right, you got to be persistent. You got to keep trucking on. You got to keep doing it. And sometimes I can't do it for myself. So I'm like, all right, you can't do it for yourself today. Do it for Star. Do it for Colton. And it's okay if you can't do it for yourself. But the fact that you have people that want you to keep moving forward.
Well, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Yeah.
If you were talking to somebody that was just starting out in recovery and they found themselves pregnant or, parenting a little one, what would you tell them about Family Threads?
Be afraid to reach out for help.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know that there's this mentality that you got to do it alone, that you got to figure it out on your own. And, you're the one that got yourself into this situation, so it's your job to figure it out. I would say also just give yourself a chance because so much of recovery is learning how to lose, how to be there for yourself. And one of the ways that you can prove that you're there to yourself, love yourself, is to reach out to people who you know have your back. Don't deprive yourself of help just because you're scared or because you're worried that you're going to get judged. You just have to reach out to the right people.
And I think that's the key, right? Is that you can reach out and not get the right people and then be afraid to keep trying.
Yeah. And so, like, once you know people that you can rely on, who don't ask for anything in return, that's when you continue to make the right choices. And when a hurdle comes up, you're like, all right, hey, help.
Help. Yeah. And we all run into barriers, I know I have my people that I call when I get stuff in life. And, when I think too, when you have to leave your social networks behind, and some people do, some people don't, it just depends.
That's the beauty of adulthood too, is that you literally get to create your own little village of people. It doesn't have to be a lot of people.
No.
You don't need to invite the whole world and just a few good people that you know.
Anything else you want to say about Family Threads, the program, having a family support worker or a recovery coach behind you?
Whether you guys see it or not, you guys are changing the course of recovery. And I'm a skeptic, and there's a lot of cynicism within me, but you guys have changed significantly.
Thanks so much. You want to join us? So, becoming a social worker.
Yeah, I mean,
change the world.
Even if it's not like I don't expect to make a massive impact on life before I go, but if it means that there's a little dent with the work that I've done, then that's more than
yeah.
Well,
it's been a pleasure talking with you for sure, and I'm excited for what comes next for you guys.
I know there's a lot of big things happening.
A lot of big things. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Archways Threads. If there is a topic you'd like to see us cover, email us at podcast@archwaysnh.org or call us at 603-960-2128. Visit our website at archwaysnh.org to learn more about the Archways family of recovery and family resource centers.